I promise you it's not as bad as it looks. So, I've checked it out, get game response. So, I take in the command, I split it on a space, and then I call get game action and pass in the first argument, right? So if I had a string that came in that was this and that, if I split that, it would end up being an array of this and this and that. So you see if I took this string and I split on space, I would then get an array of all the words. And if I then said, let's just say this is var whatever, apologize for the pseudocode, but you get the idea. So if I split whatever into this array, whatever at the 0 index would be this word. I probably shouldn't have said this because now I'm using the word this over and over again. Is that confusing? I apologize. So the first element in this array is at the 0 index, and then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. So I'm saying, hey, whatever command comes in, whatever input I get from the user, split it on the space, take the first word that you get, and pass it to get game action. Okay? So bear with me. Then inside of get game action, I say, take that first word that came in, trim it, and lower it. Alright, so I hope that makes sense. So I'm just making sure that there's no space on either end, and that all the letters are lowercase. So that's going to ensure a good match. And then I'm going to return, okay, and so I'm using a tertiary operator. So I'm going to return my action map, which is a dictionary, and say, for a tertiary operator, I'm saying, is this true? Does the action map contain, as a key, whatever this word is? So if it came through and the first word was fight, it would come into my dictionary and it would say, do I have a key that's fight as a string? And that would return true. And the way a tertiary operator works is it says, if your condition returns true, then execute this statement. Right? And so and to show what this looks like, it is condition, question mark, right? So there's this, is this condition true, question mark? If so, then do this. And then we've got a colon, which is our else. So we say else do this, right? So it's condition. If I satisfy the condition, do the first statement. If I fail the condition, do the second statement. So it's a tertiary operator. Comes in handy quite often. So I'm asking, does my command map contain the word fight? If it does, then return the command that maps to. If it doesn't, then return by default that there's no game action for this. Cool? So, for my get game response, I'm taking in all of my dependencies that I would be reusing up above, and I'm saying split the command based off of the empty space. Get me the game action. So if the first word is found in this map, give me that game action. If it's not found, then give me back none. Then I'm saying that if the arg's length is greater than 1, and so this means if I get more than 2 words, because right now I just want it to be action target, action target. So if you give me action target some other word.com hashtag stump the wizard, I'm just going to return back no suitable command. So if you give me more than 2 words, or the game action from this guy is equal to none, then I return back no suitable command. And my no suitable command, if I come down here, is a message. Sorry, no command matched your request. This was not successful. And I generate a new request for my command stack, saying the game action was none, the sender was player, the target was null. And the other method I use is if I did find the target, if I did find the command and it was legal, then I get the target. And so I have a get target method, which is I pass in the room and I pass in the second word you sent in. And down here, I do the game objects first where the name is equal to the target name. And then I return the response. So that's actually, that's much harder, right? That's much harder than simply, I'll scroll up, and simply writing all this out in a very scripty, procedural way, right? It is. It's harder to think about it in these OOP kind of terms of breaking it up and planning it out that way. Which is why I like to defer that optimization until I know all the moving parts, because I do want to keep it easy. While I'm still figuring out what's going into the game, what's going into this process, I want to keep this as easy as possible. And then once I've got a good idea, then I'll put in the time to really think about how these little ancillary helper methods are going to work. Hang on, let me catch up with chat. Orny2222 says, what would you recommend to learn C#? Alright, so, Orny, if you look down in the channel, if you're here on Twitch, I got a link to a Absolute Beginner series from Microsoft. It's 25 videos, I think, and I'd recommend starting off there. The IDE that I'm using is the Visual Studio Community Edition, which is free, and it should be feature rich. In the past, Microsoft had like Express editions, and their free editions always missing something. But now the Community Edition is as powerful as the professional editions used to be. So you can grab the free IDE, you can run through those videos, and you shouldn't run into any bottlenecks as far as what you can do. It should be a great place to start off. The only thing that you'll see in my videos, which should be a good extension off of that beginning series, is that I use the ReSharper plugin. And the ReSharper plugin helps with code formatting, code hints and suggestions, and that one you do have to pay for. Okay. Gruen's Shaft, did I pronounce that right? Y'all gotta help me with these. Says, shouldn't you do first or default instead of first when trying to find the target? You could. So there's a style choice there. When I do first, so what he's saying, or she, or them, or us, I don't know. So what the question is saying is, if I do first here, and there is no name that matches this, I'm going to get an exception, and much like the one we just saw that we're trying to kind of fix. And if I do first or default, I'm going to get a null in this case, right? So it's important to know that I might not get a null. Does that make sense? Because default is going to be the default value for that type. Because I'm using an object, the default type is null. So the reason why I don't like using first or default is because I think it's a bit leaky. So if I had a list of integers that I was looking for a number, and I did default, I'm getting back 0. I'm not getting back null. So the typical check for a first default is saying, oh, okay, well, if that's null on the return, then let me go ahead and do something else. But because I don't want my patterns and my layers to know that much, I want them to simply handle exceptions. And I want those exceptions to be very feature rich, right? I don't want, for example, when I get into the hive mind, which is my game engine, when I'm here, I don't want to say if response does not equal null. That's not what I want to see. And I don't want to see if response is greater than 0. I don't want to see these algorithms, right? Because this plays back on something else we were talking about earlier, which is every statement is an algorithm. Every statement is this precise bit of business logic designed to answer a question. And when you have these kind of littered everywhere, what happens when the nature of that question changes? You have to go through and find all of your null checks and find all of your little algorithms that have been kind of put everywhere, and you have to change those as well. So in that case, I just want to use a flag, right? And so that way, that algorithm, whatever that is, I don't care, because I'm just a calling layer, and I shouldn't care. It's a black box to me. It'll go decide whatever was successful means. It could be a null check. It could be if the value is greater than 0. It could be anything. So, but that's actually a really good question, because it leads back into why we want to refactor this the way that we are. So, I do want this to fail. I want this to fail spectacularly. I want it to be like what? So when I come back up here, let's just start back where it makes sense. All right, so I've got this get game response. And I can say response is equal to get game response, and I pass in the command, the hive mind, the room, and the player. So, in theory, this one line of code has replaced all of this. It hasn't replaced look, and it hasn't replaced get, and some of the other things we want to do. But it has replaced all of this, which is great. But we need to handle those edge conditions. Cassiopeia 87 says hello, and I too greet the stars. Hello, Cassiopeia. Okay. Sorry, I'm just thinking real fast. So, we can, I think, this is where it gets scary. I think we can get rid of fight, negotiate, repair, heal, and look. Alright, so making the progress. So replaced all of that with this one call. I'm going to make a note because we're making this dense, right?